The flash of cameras nearly blinded me as I stepped onto the runway for my final bow. 6 months of sleepless nights, countless cups of coffee, and enough anxiety to fill Madison Square Garden had led to this moment. As the applause thundered through the venue, I couldn't help but smile, knowing somewhere out there, my ex-husband Lucas was probably choking on his morning coffee. I'm Freya, and 3 years ago I lost everything. Well, Lucas took everything, if we're being precise. Now I was standing at New York Fashion Week, watching the fashion elite give me a standing ovation for my debut collection. Freya, this is incredible. Rachel, my best friend and head of PR, rushed backstage to hug me. The buyers from Bergdorf's are practically fighting each other to place orders. I grinned, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. Please tell me someone recorded their reaction to the closing piece. The red dress? Girl, I think Anna Wintour actually smiled. The backstage area buzzed with activity, models changing, photographers snapping last-minute shots, and assistants scurrying around with clipboards. I took a moment to lean against a makeup station, letting it all sink in. Remember when you were sleeping on my couch? Rachel asked softly, squeezing my hand. Look at you now. Yeah, funny how life works out when your husband doesn't empty your joint account and run off with a model half his age. I took another sip of champagne, the bubbles matching the effervescent feeling in my chest. Ms. Holland, a young assistant appeared at my elbow. Cynthia Black would like a word. My heart skipped. Cynthia Black, the fashion director who'd given me my second chance, wanted to see me. I smoothed down my black designer dress, one of my own creations, and followed the assistant. Cynthia stood near the exit, her signature white hair perfectly coiffed. Darling, you've outdone yourself. She air-kissed both my cheeks. The construction, the storytelling through the progression of the pieces, brilliant. Thank you, Cynthia. I couldn't have done this without your support. Nonsense, you did this all on your own. Though I must say, that final red dress, she raised an eyebrow, rather reminiscent of the one you wore to the Met Gala 3 years ago, isn't it? The one Lucas praised so highly before. Before he stole my designs, my money and my dignity, I finished for her. Maybe I wanted to reclaim it, make it mine again. Cynthia's eyes sparkled. Well, revenge does look fabulous on you, darling. The next hour passed in a blur of interviews and congratulations. I was answering questions about my inspiration when Rachel appeared again, her face pale. Freya, we need to talk, now. I excused myself and followed her to a quiet corner. What's wrong? She's here. Who's here? Natasha. The champagne turned sour in my stomach. Natasha, the model Lucas had left me for. The one who'd worn my designs while sleeping with my husband. The one who'd smiled sympathetically at me at parties while knowing what was coming. Where? Rachel pointed toward the emergency exit. There she stood, Natasha Crawford, former IT girl and face of major campaigns. But she looked different now. Gone was the confident pose and perfect makeup. She looked haunted, her designer clothes wrinkled and her eyes red-rimmed. Should I call security? Rachel asked, already reaching for her phone. I held up my hand. No, let her come. Natasha approached slowly, like a wounded animal. Up close, I could see dark circles under her eyes, poorly concealed by makeup. Freya, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, I know I'm the last person you want to see. You've got that right. I crossed my arms, aware of Rachel hovering protectively nearby. I need your help. Tears welled in her eyes. Lucas, he's done it again, but this time it's so much worse. I'm in trouble, real trouble, and you're the only one who might understand. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Understand? You want me to understand? You helped him destroy my life. And now he's destroyed mine too. She grabbed my arm desperately. Please, Freya, I have nowhere else to go. The FBI is involved and I... The FBI? Rachel interrupted, stepping closer. Natasha nodded, fumbling in her designer bag. She pulled out a crumpled envelope and thrust it at me. Everything's in here. What he did to you, to me, to others. Please, just look at it. After that, if you still want me to leave, I will. I stared at the envelope, my heart pounding. 3 years of rebuilding my life, of pushing past the pain and humiliation. And now this? The universe had a sick sense of humor. You have 5 minutes, I said finally, taking the envelope. Make them count. Natasha's relief was palpable. As she began to speak, I caught my reflection in a nearby mirror. The woman looking back at me wasn't the same person who'd lost everything 3 years ago. She was stronger now, harder, and maybe, just maybe, ready for some real revenge. We should do this somewhere more private, I said, glancing around the bustling backstage area. Rachel, can you handle things here? Rachel shot Natasha a suspicious look. Are you sure about this? No, but I'm curious. I grabbed my coat and bag. There's a quiet coffee shop around the corner. The February wind bit at our faces as we walked. Natasha hugged herself, her thin designer jacket offering little protection against the cold. 3 years ago, I might have felt sorry for her. Now, I just felt impatient. The coffee shop was nearly empty. I chose a corner booth, far from the few other customers, and ordered a black coffee. Natasha got nothing. Talk, I said, spreading the contents of the envelope across the table. Bank statements, photographs, and what looked like email printouts scattered across the surface. Lucas, Natasha's voice cracked. He wasn't just stealing money. He was running a whole scheme. Fashion companies, investors, even models. He took everything. I picked up one of the bank statements. These are from the Cayman Islands. That's where he kept most of it, including what he took from you. She leaned forward. But it gets worse. He was using the modeling agency as a front for money laundering, big money, and he used my name on all the paperwork. I set down my coffee. You're telling me you didn't know? I knew something wasn't right, but I thought... She wiped at her eyes. God, I was so stupid. I thought he was just being clever with investments. By the time I figured it out, he'd already disappeared. When? 3 weeks ago. I woke up and he was gone, along with everything in our accounts. She laughed bitterly. Sound familiar? It did. Too familiar. I examined a photograph showing Lucas at some high-end party, his arm around a woman who wasn't Natasha. The date stamp was from 2 months ago. The FBI showed up at my door yesterday, Natasha continued. They're investigating the money laundering. My name is all over everything, Freya. I'm looking at serious prison time unless I can prove it was all Lucas. And how exactly am I supposed to help with that? Because you know how he works. You saw the signs before anyone else did, and... She pulled out another document from her bag. Because he's still using your old designs. My hands shook as I looked at the paper. Sketches, my sketches, with recent dates. Designs I'd created years ago, now being sold under a different label. Where did you get these? His laptop. He left it behind when he ran. I think he was in a hurry. Natasha's eyes gleamed. There's more. Account numbers, emails, everything. But I need help understanding it all. You worked in finance before fashion. You'd know what to look for. You've got some nerve, I said, my voice cold. You help him steal my life, and now you want me to help you save yours? I know how it sounds. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I was young and stupid. He told me you were the one stealing from him, that you were trying to ruin his career. I believed him because I wanted to believe him, because he made me feel special, like he made me feel special. I gathered the papers, stuffing them back into the envelope. You know what the worst part was? Not the money, not even the designs. It was watching you wear my clothes at events, knowing you were sleeping with my husband, seeing you both laugh about it in page 6. I'm sorry, she whispered. I know it doesn't mean anything now, but I am so, so sorry. I stood up, envelope in hand. You're right, it doesn't mean anything. Please, she grabbed my wrist. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for help to take him down, for both of us. I looked down at her perfectly manicured hand on my wrist, then at her face. The confident model was gone. replaced by someone who looked as broken as I'd felt 3 years ago. "The FBI," I said slowly. "When are they expecting to talk to you again?" "Tomorrow morning." I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. "Virgil, it's Freya. Remember that favor you owe me? I need a meeting. Tonight. And bring everything you have on international banking fraud." Hanging up, I turned back to Natasha. "My lawyer will meet us in an hour. If, and that's a big if, what you're showing me is real, we might be able to help each other." "Thank you," she breathed. "You won't regret this." "Oh, I probably will." I picked up my coffee. But you know what? The thought of Lucas in handcuffs might just make it worth it. As we left the coffee shop, my phone buzzed with a text from Rachel. "Everything okay?" I typed back, "No, but it might be about to get interesting." Looking at Natasha's anxious face in the fading daylight, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, the thrill of the hunt. Lucas had no idea what was coming for him, and this time, I wouldn't be facing him alone. Virgil's office smelled of leather and expensive cologne. He sat behind his mahogany desk, reading glasses perched on his nose as he examined the documents spread before him. The wall clock ticked past midnight, but none of us showed any signs of fatigue. "This is..." Virgil removed his glasses, rubbing his eyes. "This is significantly bigger than what he did to you, Freya." "How much bigger?" I asked, perched on the edge of my chair. "We're talking tens of millions, multiple shell companies, fake investors, forged documents." He turned to Natasha. "And your signature is on nearly everything." Natasha's face crumpled. "Can you help me?" "The good news is, this level of sophistication makes it clear you weren't the mastermind." Virgil shuffled through more papers. "The bad news is, proving that will be difficult without Lucas." "What about the laptop?" I asked. "It's a start, but we need more. Bank records, correspondence, witnesses." He paused, studying a particular document. "Wait, this name keeps appearing. Who's Eddie?" Natasha straightened. "Eddie? Eddie Martinez? He was Lucas's right-hand man at the agency, always hanging around, handling paperwork. Did he disappear with Lucas?" "No," she frowned. "Actually, I saw him last week at a casting call. He seemed nervous." Virgil and I exchanged looks. "We need to talk to Eddie," I said. "Carefully," Virgil warned. "If he's involved, we don't want to spook him." My phone buzzed. Rachel sending another check-in text. As I replied, an idea formed. "The after-party," I said. "My collection launch party tomorrow night. Every major player in the industry will be there, including casting directors." Natasha caught on quickly. "Eddie never misses a big industry event. Too many potential contacts. Perfect." Virgil started gathering the documents. "But first, we need to get ahead of the FBI interview tomorrow. Natasha, you'll tell them everything, except about the laptop and Eddie. We need those cards close to our chest." As we left Virgil's office, the city was quiet, streets empty except for the occasional taxi. Natasha hesitated by my car. "I can't go home," she said quietly. "The press has been camping outside my apartment since Lucas disappeared. I knew I'd regret this." "You can stay at my place, but just for tonight." The drive to my apartment was silent. Inside, Natasha stood awkwardly in my living room, taking in the minimalist decor and wall of fashion sketches. "These are amazing," she said, studying one drawing. "They're all copies," I replied. "Lucas took the originals." "God, I was such an idiot." She turned to face me. "You know what he told me? He said you were jealous of his success, that you were trying to take credit for his work. I actually believed him." "Because you wanted to," I said, tossing her a blanket and pillow. "The couch is comfortable enough." "Freya?" Her voice stopped me halfway to my bedroom. "Did you ever wonder why he chose me?" I turned slowly. "Every day for a year. He said it was because I reminded him of you, the you he first met, before you got bitter and focused on money, instead of art." She laughed hollowly. "Now I realize he was just looking for someone easier to control." "Get some sleep, Natasha. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. I lay awake in bed, memories flooding back. Lucas at design school, charming and passionate. Lucas helping me transition from finance to fashion. Lucas gradually taking control of our finances, our business decisions, our life. My phone lit up with a text from Rachel. "Are you sure about this?" I typed back, "No, but I'm sure about taking him down." Morning came too quickly. I found Natasha in my kitchen, already dressed in borrowed clothes, making coffee. "The FBI meeting is at 9, she said, handing me a cup. "Virgil's meeting us there." "And tonight," I said, "we find Eddie. What if he runs? Then we'll know he's hiding something." I sipped the coffee. It was good. But something tells me Eddie's looking for a way out too. My phone rang, Virgil with last-minute instructions. As I listened, I watched Natasha staring out my window at the city below. 3 years ago, I'd stood in the same spot, watching my world crumble. Now I was watching karma come full circle. "Ready?" I asked, grabbing my coat. Natasha nodded, her face set with determination. "Ready to take the bastard down." We stepped out into the morning sunshine, 2 women united by betrayal and a thirst for justice. The FBI building loomed ahead of us, its glass windows reflecting the rising sun. Inside those walls, we'd start the domino effect that would bring Lucas's world crashing down. And somewhere in the city, Eddie was going about his day, unaware that his comfortable existence was about to be shattered. Tonight's party wouldn't just be celebrating my collection, it would be the beginning of our revenge. The FBI interview went exactly as Virgil planned. Natasha played her part perfectly, the naive model manipulated by a cunning fraudster. By the time we left, the agents were more interested in Lucas than her. "That went well," Virgil said, straightening his tie in the elevator. "But now comes the hard part. We need something concrete from Eddie tonight." "Leave that to me," I said, checking my phone. "Rachel's already confirmed he's on the guest list." Back at my apartment, Natasha and I prepared for the party. I lent her one of my designs, a sleek black dress that would help her blend in rather than stand out. For once, she wasn't trying to be the center of attention. "How do we approach Eddie?" she asked, applying mascara. "He's paranoid on a good day." "We don't. Rachel does." I showed her my phone screen, displaying Rachel's message. "David's in position." "Who's David?" "Private investigator. He's been following Eddie all week." I smiled grimly. Turns out our friend's been making some interesting trips to Western Union. The party venue was packed when we arrived. Fashion Week always brought out everyone who was anyone, and tonight was no exception. Rachel met us at the entrance, clipboard in hand. "Eddie's at the bar," she whispered. "David says he's made 3 calls in the last hour, all to the same number." "Good." I scanned the crowd. "You know what to do." Rachel nodded and disappeared into the crowd. I watched as she approached the bar, all smiles and charm. Eddie didn't stand a chance. "There's Cynthia," Natasha murmured. "She's heading this way." "Split up," I said quickly. "Mingle, but keep an eye on Eddie. Text if he moves." Cynthia air-kissed my cheeks. "Darling, the collection is all anyone's talking about, but—" She glanced at Natasha's retreating form. "Are you sure about your choice of company tonight?" "Trust me, Cynthia. Everything's under control." For the next hour, I played the gracious host while watching Rachel work her magic. She had Eddie laughing, drinking, relaxing. I caught snippets of their conversation as I circulated. She was playing the ambitious PR rep, fishing for industry contacts. My phone buzzed. A text from David. Eddie just got a text, looking nervous. I watched as Eddie checked his phone, his face draining of color. He made an excuse to Rachel and headed for the restroom corridor. "Now," I texted Natasha. I made my way to the back corridor, arriving just as Eddie emerged from the restroom. He froze when he saw me. "Freya, great party. I was just running." Natasha stepped out from behind him, blocking his retreat. "What is this?" His eyes darted between us. I held up my phone, showing him a photo David had taken. "Western Union, Eddie? That's amateur. Lucas taught you better than that." "I don't know what you're talking about." But his voice shook. "Really? So these transfers to Panama, aren't you moving Lucas's money?" "Or maybe," Natasha added, "they're your cut, the price of keeping quiet?" Eddie's facade cracked. "You don't understand. He'll kill me if I talk." "He'll kill you anyway," I said softly. "You know too much. Just like I did, just like Natasha did. We're all loose ends to him." "The FBI is already investigating," Natasha pressed. "They'll find everything eventually. But if you help us now—" "I can't." Eddie tried to push past us, but I grabbed his arm. "Those Western Union transfers? The FBI will find them tomorrow morning. Anonymous tip. How long do you think it'll take them to connect the dots?" He slumped against the wall. "What do you want?" "Everything," I said. "Account numbers, contacts, where he's hiding. But most importantly, proof that Natasha wasn't involved." "And what do I get?" "Immunity," said a voice behind us. Virgil stepped out of the shadows. "My client is willing to make a deal with the FBI on your behalf, but only if you give us everything tonight." Eddie looked trapped, desperate. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "He's in Buenos Aires," he finally whispered, "using a passport under the name Michael Ross. The account numbers, everything. It's all in a safe deposit box at First National." "Key?" I demanded. Hands shaking, he pulled a key from his wallet. "Box 247. But there's something else you should know." He looked at me. "Those designs he stole from you, he sold them, all of them, to manufacturers in Asia." My stomach dropped. "When?" "Last week. The papers are in the box, too. I'm sorry, Freya. I really am." Virgil took the key, nodding to someone in the shadows. 2 FBI agents emerged, badges glinting. "Mr. Martinez," one said, "we'd like you to come with us." As they led Eddie away, I leaned against the wall, processing. My designs, my original designs, were gone, mass-produced somewhere overseas, probably already hitting the market. "Freya?" Natasha touched my arm. "Are you okay?" "No," I said, straightening up, "but I will be. Because now we know where Lucas is, and he has no idea we're coming." Rachel appeared with our coats. "David's already booking flights to Buenos Aires." I smiled, a cold, determined smile. "Perfect. Time to pay my ex-husband a surprise visit." Buenos Aires in summer was suffocating. We'd been here 3 days, holed up in a boutique hotel, while David tracked Lucas's movements. The safe deposit box had yielded everything Eddie promised: account numbers, contracts, and devastating proof of my stolen designs being sold to fast fashion manufacturers. "He's meeting someone tonight," David said, spreading photos across the hotel room table. "High-end restaurant in Palermo. Looks like another potential investor." "Another victim, you mean?" Natasha muttered, studying the surveillance photos. Rachel paced by the window. "Are we sure about this? Going in person seems risky." "We need him to slip up," I said, examining a photo of Lucas entering his apartment building. "He's too careful with emails and phones, but face-to-face?" I smiled. "That's where he gets cocky." "The restaurant's perfect," David continued. "Public enough that he can't make a scene, private enough for our conversation. I've already arranged a table next to his." My phone buzzed. Virgil checking in. The FBI was building their case, but they needed Lucas back on U.S. soil to arrest him. Our job was to spook him into running straight into their trap. "One problem," Rachel said. "He knows what you both look like. He'll spot you immediately." I pulled out a small bag from my suitcase. "That's why we're going to give him exactly what he expects to see." 2 hours later, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. Gone was my signature platinum blonde hair, replaced by a dark brown wig styled in a sleek bob. Colored contacts turned my blue eyes brown. Even my posture was different, the confident designer replaced by a demure businesswoman. Natasha had undergone an even more dramatic transformation. Her model-perfect features were hidden behind glasses, her famous red hair now black and pulled into a severe bun. Ready? David asked, handing us our earpieces. The restaurant was exactly the type Lucas loved. Expensive enough to impress, but not flashy enough to draw attention. We arrived early, taking our seats at the adjacent table. Rachel and David positioned themselves at the bar, watching. Target approaching, David's voice crackled in my ear. With company, my heart stopped when Lucas walked in. 3 years hadn't changed him much. Same confident stride, same charming smile. He was with an older man, clearly wealthy, clearly impressed by whatever Lucas was selling. Remember, Rachel's voice warned, let him get comfortable first. I forced myself to focus on the menu, while listening to Lucas's smooth sales pitch at the next table. Same old lines, same practiced sincerity. The investor was eating it up. Now, David said quietly. I stood, deliberately bumping into Lucas's chair as I headed to the restroom. Oh, I'm so sorry, I said in Spanish, using the accent I'd practiced. Lucas barely glanced up. No problem. I walked away, counting steps. 1, 2, 3. Wait. His voice stopped me. I turned. He was staring at me, brow furrowed. Yes? He shook his head slightly. Nothing. You just reminded me of someone. I smiled politely and continued to the restroom. Through my earpiece, I heard Natasha begin phase 2, a quiet phone conversation at her table, deliberately dropping words like investment opportunity and offshore accounts. When I returned, Lucas was distracted, keeping glancing between Natasha and me. The investor was still talking, but Lucas's responses were becoming shorter, less focused. He's rattled, David observed. Time to close the trap. I pulled out my phone, deliberately angling it so Lucas could see the screen. On it was a photo of his Buenos Aires apartment building. His face went white. Excuse me, he said to his companion, standing abruptly. I need to make a call. He hurried toward the exit. As planned, Natasha got up at the same time, timing their collision perfectly. I'm so sorry, she said, her glasses falling off. As she bent to retrieve them, recognition flickered across Lucas's face. No, he whispered. It can't be. I stood, removing my wig. Hello, Lucas. Miss me? He backed away, looking between us with growing panic. This is impossible. You two. You can't. Can't what? I stepped closer. Can't work together. Can't find you. Can't destroy you like you destroyed us. You don't understand, he hissed. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Actually, Natasha said, we do. Eddie was very helpful. The color drained from his face. Eddie, he sang like a bird, I smiled. The FBI has everything, Lucas. The accounts, the contracts, the fake companies. They're probably freezing your assets right now. He turned to run, but David and 2 local police officers blocked the exit. Running again? I called after him. That's your solution to everything, isn't it? But here's the thing about running, Lucas. Eventually, you run out of places to hide. As the officers led him away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. But something in his last look, a mixture of fury and calculation, told me this wasn't over. That was too easy, Rachel said, joining us. He's planning something. Good, I replied, watching Lucas being pushed into a police car. Because so are we. The Buenos Aires police station buzzed with activity as we waited. Lucas had demanded to speak with me, alone. Virgil, patched in via video call, strongly advised against it. It's a manipulation tactic, he warned. He'll try to get in your head. Good, I said. Let him try. The interrogation room was small and stark. Lucas sat handcuffed to the table, his designer suit wrinkled, his perfect hair disheveled. He still managed to smile when I walked in. You look good, Freya. Success suits you. Save it. I sat across from him. You wanted to talk. So talk. Remember our first apartment, that tiny studio in Brooklyn? He leaned forward. You were so talented, so pure in your art. What happened to that girl? You destroyed her, or did you forget? I made you stronger. Look at you now, a force to be reckoned with. His eyes gleamed. We could be that force together again. I laughed. Are you seriously trying to pitch me a partnership? Think about it. Your designs, my connections. Even with this little setback, I still have resources, people who owe me favors. People you've scammed. People who understand business. He lowered his voice. The FBI's case isn't as strong as you think. Eddie's word against mine. Please. But if you drop the charges, help me out of this mess, I can get your designs back. My heart skipped. What? Those contracts I signed? They're not final. One phone call from me and those designs stay yours, exclusively. He smiled. All you have to do is walk out that door and tell them it was all a misunderstanding. For a moment, just a moment, I hesitated. Those designs were my life's work, my original vision. But then I remembered something. You know what I realized, Lucas? Those designs, they're just pieces of paper. But what you really stole was 3 years of my life. My trust, my belief in myself. I stood up. Keep the designs. I'll make better ones. His smile vanished. You're making a mistake. No, I made my mistake when I married you. This is justice. Justice? He laughed harshly. You think you're the hero here? Working with Natasha? She's playing you, just like she played me. What are you talking about? Ask her about the money transfers from last year. Ask her about the offshore account in her grandmother's name. His eyes glittered. Ask her about the real reason she came to you. A knock at the door interrupted us. David poked his head in. Freya, we have a problem. In the hallway, Rachel was trying to calm a hysterical Natasha. He's gone, she sobbed. Eddie's gone. What do you mean, gone? He was supposed to meet with the FBI this morning to sign his official statement. He never showed up. David ran a hand through his hair. His apartment's cleaned out. Phone's dead. Lucas, I breathed. He got to him somehow. That's not all, Rachel said quietly. The safe deposit box documents. The copies we made. They're missing from the hotel safe. My mind raced. Had Lucas planned this? Was this why he seemed so confident? Virgil, I called to the laptop still open on a nearby desk. What does this mean for the case? Without Eddie's testimony and those documents. Virgil sighed. It complicates things. We need something else to corroborate the evidence. I turned to Natasha, Lucas's words echoing in my head. Tell me about the offshore account in your grandmother's name. She went pale. How did you... Lucas told me. Is it true? I can explain, she started, but I cut her off. No more lies. No more games. What aren't you telling me? Tears streamed down her face. The account. It was my safety net. Lucas set it up last year, said it was insurance in case things went wrong. I didn't know where the money came from, I swear. How much? 2 million. Rachel gasped. David swore under his breath. So you came to me, not because you needed help, but because you needed cover, I said coldly. Someone to legitimize your story to the FBI. No, I mean, yes, at first, but then I saw how he'd hurt you too, how many others he'd destroyed. She grabbed my arm. Please, you have to believe me. I want him taken down as much as you do. I shook her off, my mind already racing ahead. David, can you trace Eddie? Maybe. He's not as careful as Lucas. Do it. Rachel, get Virgil everything we have on Natasha's grandmother's account. And you, I turned to Natasha, are going to tell me everything. Every detail you left out, every conversation you had with Lucas about that account. Because right now, it might be the only card we have left to play. Through the interrogation room window, I could see Lucas watching us, that smug smile back on his face. He thought he'd won this round, but he'd forgotten something crucial. I wasn't that naive girl from Brooklyn anymore. And this time, I was ready for war. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity. David tracked Eddie's movements to a small town on the Brazilian border. Virgil worked his legal magic, and Natasha's grandmother's account became our smoking gun. The money trail is clear, Virgil explained over video call. Lucas used that account to test his laundering system. Every transaction, every transfer, it all leads back to him. And my grandmother had no idea, Natasha added quietly. He used her name without her knowledge. Which makes it identity theft, Rachel said, on top of everything else. We gathered in my hotel room, preparing for the final confrontation. The FBI had agreed to let us handle the initial meeting with Eddie, hoping he'd be more likely to talk to us than agents. He's staying at a motel just outside the city, David reported, paid cash, using a fake name, but it's definitely him. What makes you so sure he'll help us? Rachel asked. I held up my phone, showing them the email I'd received an hour ago. Because he sent me this, the others crowded around to read it. Eddie's message was brief but clear. I can't live with this anymore. Meet me tonight. I'll tell you everything. It could be a trap, David warned. Of course it's a trap, I replied. But it's also our only chance. The motel was exactly as depressing as I'd expected. A rundown building on the outskirts of town, its neon sign flickering weakly in the dusk. David positioned himself in a car across the street, while Rachel waited in the lobby. Natasha and I approached Eddie's room together. He opened on the first knock, looking worse than I'd ever seen him. Quick, get inside. The room smelled of cheap whiskey and fear. Eddie paced nervously, checking his phone every few seconds. Lucas reached out to you, didn't he? I asked. He's crazy, Eddie muttered. Completely crazy. Threatened my family. Said he'd make sure I went down for everything. We can protect you, Natasha said. The FBI. The FBI can't stop him, Eddie exploded. You don't understand. He's got people everywhere. Judges, bankers, police. Then help us stop him, I pressed. Give us something concrete. Something he can't talk his way out of. Eddie ran his hands through his hair. There's a video. Lucas liked to record his meetings with investors. Said it helped him remember details. But really, he used them as insurance. Blackmail. Where are these videos? On a secure server. I have the access codes. He pulled out a USB drive. Everything's on here. Account numbers, passwords, videos. Enough to put him away for decades. My hand reached for the drive, but something made me hesitate. It was too easy. Eddie was too nervous, too eager. Show us, I said instead. Pull up one of the videos now. He froze. I can't. The files are encrypted. Really? I pulled out my phone, dialing. David now. The door burst open. David entered, followed by 2 FBI agents who'd been waiting nearby. Eddie's face crumpled. He said you'd do this, he whispered. Said you wouldn't trust me. The USB is fake, I said to the agents. Lucas put him up to this, probably hoping we'd take it straight to the FBI, discredit our whole case with false evidence. Eddie slumped onto the bed, defeated. He has my sister. Said he'd hurt her if I didn't help him. Your sister is fine, David said, checking his phone. Our people found her an hour ago. She's safe. Tears rolled down Eddie's cheeks. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Tell us the truth, I said softly. All of it. No more games. And he did. For the next hour, Eddie laid out everything. The real server locations, the actual evidence, the names of Lucas's conspirators. The FBI agents recorded every word. One last thing, Eddie said finally. Lucas isn't planning to stay in custody. He's got an escape planned for the transfer to the airport tomorrow. Someone on the inside. My phone rang. Rachel. Freya, Lucas is gone. He just walked out of the police station. Some paperwork mix-up with his release. I met Natasha's eyes. We'd been played again. He's running, she said. No, I replied, a sudden clarity washing over me. He's not running. He's heading for the servers. Eddie just told us where they are. He knows we'll send the FBI there. So where's he really going? I thought about Lucas, about how he thought, how he planned. The fashion show, the one in Sao Paulo tomorrow, it's where he's planning to sell my designs. How can you be sure? Because he wants me to know I've lost. He wants to hurt me one last time. I turned to the FBI agents. How fast can we get to São Paulo? One agent was already on his phone. We can have a team there in 3 hours. Good. I grabbed my bag. Because this time, Lucas isn't just going to face justice, he's going to face me. As we rushed to the waiting cars, I felt strangely calm. The end was coming, one way or another, and this time, I'd make sure Lucas had nowhere left to run. The São Paulo Fashion Week venue buzzed with pre-show energy. Backstage, models rushed between racks of clothing, my stolen designs, now branded with another label. Lucas had to be here somewhere. Security's in position, David murmured through my earpiece. All exits covered. The FBI team is 5 minutes out, Rachel added. I moved through the chaos, Natasha close behind. She'd insisted on coming, saying she owed me this much at least. A flash of familiar silver hair caught my eye. Lucas, talking to a group of buyers. Ladies and gentlemen, he was saying, these designs represent a bold new direction. Funny, I called out, loud enough to turn heads. They look like my old direction to me. Lucas spun around. For a split second, genuine shock crossed his face before his smooth mask slipped back into place. Freya, I was hoping you'd come. He smiled at the confused buyers. My ex-wife, and still my greatest inspiration. Save it. I held up my phone, showing him the live feed from the server facility where the FBI was currently collecting his videos. It's over, Lucas. Eddie told us everything. Eddie talks too much. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Walk away now. You can still salvage something from this. Like my dignity, my reputation, the years you stole from me. I made you stronger, he hissed. Everything you are today. It's because of me. No, I said firmly. Everything I am today is because I survived you. His eyes darted around, looking for escape routes. The buyers had backed away, sensing the tension. Security guards were moving closer. You really want to do this here? He asked. In front of everyone. Think about the scandal. Actually, Natasha stepped forward, phone raised. That's exactly what we want. We're live streaming, by the way, to every fashion blog and industry insider who follows me. Lucas lunged for her phone, but I was ready. I grabbed his arm, using his momentum to spin him around. He stumbled into a clothing rack, sending my designs crashing to the floor. Those designs, he spat, scrambling up, they were wasted on you. You never understood the business side, the compromises needed. The only thing I didn't understand was how I ever loved someone like you. FBI agents burst through the doors, led by David. Lucas took one look and ran, shoving past models and photographers. He made it halfway to the emergency exit before Natasha stuck out her foot, sending him sprawling. That's for making me believe I was special, she said as agents handcuffed him. I walked over to where he lay, face pressed against the floor. You know what the funny thing is, Lucas? These designs you stole, they're not even my best work. They're my past, the work of a woman who was afraid to trust her own voice. But now, I gestured to the chaos around us, the dozens of phones recording everything. Now everyone knows exactly who you are, and that's worth more than any design. This isn't over, he growled as agents pulled him up. Actually, it is. Rachel appeared with a tablet. The videos are already online. Every scam, every lie, every manipulation. It's all public now. Your business contacts are falling over themselves to cooperate with the FBI. As they led Lucas away, Natasha touched my arm. I really am sorry, for everything. I know, I looked at her. What will you do now? Testify. Make things right. Then maybe start over. There's this small modeling agency in Milan, focuses on ethical fashion. Send me their details, I said. I might have some designs that would work for them. The venue was clearing out, the show cancelled amid the chaos. I walked to where my designs lay scattered on the floor. Picking up a dress, I felt nothing but peace. These pieces were my history, but they weren't my future. Ready to go? Rachel asked softly. Almost. I pulled out my phone and dialed Cynthia's number. Cynthia? How would you feel about a last-minute addition to New York Fashion Week? I have some new designs in mind. Something completely different. Her laugh crackled through the speaker. Darling, after the show you just put on in São Paulo, you can have any slot you want. Outside, the São Paulo sun was setting, painting the sky in brilliant colors. David was coordinating with the FBI. Rachel was already fielding press calls, and Natasha was giving her statement to the authorities. Everything had changed, yet I felt lighter than I had in years. My phone buzzed with a message from Virgil. "Justice looks good on you." I smiled, watching Lucas being placed in an FBI vehicle. He'd wanted to be the author of my story, to write my future according to his plans. Instead, he'd become nothing more than a chapter in my past. A reminder that sometimes you have to lose everything to find out who you really are. The next chapter, that was mine to write, and I already had the perfect design in mind.